What up, tubers? Bunny here, and welcome back to GeoFlight Simulator. So this week, I'm going to be talking about the Concorde. So here it is. You've probably heard of this aircraft. It's actually quite a historic aircraft too, because as I record this, this is the only passenger jet ever built and operated that could carry passengers from point A to point B, averaging supersonic speeds. Yes, this is so far the only supersonic passenger airliner that has ever taken to the skies. However, as I record this, another company called Boom is developing the Overture, which will supposedly and eventually be the next supersonic passenger jetliner. But that's a story for another day. Today, we're talking about this bullet. Well, not exactly a bullet, but you get the idea. So in real life, this aircraft was best suited for transatlantic flights. That was around its maximum range, plus you really can't fly supersonic over land because the sonic boom that the aircraft would cause would result in potential damage across the land. So this aircraft was good for transatlantic flights, and thus in its history, only 2 airlines ever really operated the Concorde. First of them is British Airways, and this is one of the liveries that you get with this aircraft. I should mention that this is one of the aircraft that Xavier Tassin, the developer of GeoFS, added to the game. So, if I open up the aircraft menu for a moment, you see the Concorde here, between the Sukhoi Su-35 and the Zlin Z-50, toward the bottom of the aircraft list. Like, you can't even see it from the top of the list. So yes, this is where the Concorde is, and there are 3 liveries to choose from for this aircraft. First of them being British Airways, as I just stated. The second livery that you can choose from is Air France. So this is the other airline that operated the Concorde in real life. This is also the original livery that Xavier Tassin had for this aircraft. And interestingly, there is another aircraft that Xavier Tassin built that has the Air France livery. The Airbus A380, which Xavier also added to this game, also has the Air France livery, making Air France's livery the only one that appears on more than one of Xavier's added aircraft to this game. And I will be covering the A380 in another video in the future, so stay tuned for that. There's also a third livery that you can choose from for the Concorde, and it is this Pepsi livery. So, yes, if you like Pepsi, maybe this is the plane for you. If you like any sort of cola, for that matter, maybe then this plane is also for you. Yeah, take your preference. But we won't go into a cola discussion here. We'll just talk about planes. And actually, I think I kind of find this livery to be a bit of a fun one. So I think I'm going to use this livery for the remainder of this video. So the Concorde shall be flying Pepsi for the remaining 15-20 minutes as this video goes on. So this aircraft has 2 animations to them: the snoot and the front passenger door. Let me show the door first, as that one is simple enough. So if you focus your attention on the E in the Pepsi, I'm going to go ahead and press the X key on my keyboard, and you notice the door opens. So actually, if I keep your focus on the door as I turn the camera, you'll notice as I pan around, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, you see you can kind of get a quick little gander inside the cabin, kind of, sort of. So actually, there's not much to the cabin that's actually modeled in the Concorde, aside from this front area here and the cockpit. But I'll cover the cockpit in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and press X again. That will close the door. So yes, that's one animation that this aircraft has. The other animation, as I just mentioned, is its snoot. The snoot droops. Like that. That's probably something that you're aware of if you've read about the Concorde, is that the snoot droops. So let me bring the snoot back up to full. So there are 3 settings to the snoot. And to activate either of those settings, you use the same keyboard keys that you would use to raise and lower the flaps. So setting 1 will bring down this aerodynamic windshield, like so. So it gives the pilots a better view out of the aircraft with fewer pane obstruction as they are taxiing around the airport. So yeah, something like that. Also kind of interestingly, it also makes the aircraft kind of look a little bit more like some of the other aircraft that you see in the real world, because, you know, it's got the windshield dropping thing. I'm not sure what I'm saying. Let me continue on to the next next animation. So setting 2 droops the snoot about halfway. This is good for takeoff configuration. And setting 3 brings the snoot all the way down for a good landing configuration. So now the pilots get no obstructions from their windshield as they are coming in for a landing or, you know, taking off if you've got setting 2 enabled. So I'm going to go back into the full setting right here, and I'll actually show you a bit of the snoot's showability, if you will, once I get into the cockpit. And actually, I think now is the time to go into the cockpit. So, alright, it'll take a moment to load up, but here we are. Welcome to the cockpit. Population, some dumbass bunny, a smarter co-pilot, and then hopefully you get a flight engineer over in this seat who's keeping track of everything here, albeit these gauges that you see here don't really do crap. So, yeah, it's a cool addition, though, to the cockpit, you know, seeing that kind of detail that Xavier went to the trouble of adding to this aircraft. Yeah, you can see all these fuses, light switches, all these fun little stuff that don't do crap. But that means that I gotta focus your attention over to the front of the cockpit, where you'll find most of the useful gauges that you'll need. So over here, let me first direct you to the yoke. So the yoke is animated, so I can pitch down, I can pitch up, roll left and roll right. Now for y'all, you'll see 2 objects animate. This black handled lever and these foot pedals. So you see them both operate as I yaw left. Now I'm yawing right, and you see that both things animate. And just like that, yeah. So let me bring the yoke back to level. You'll notice that this aircraft has 2 nav balls, one in the center and then one at the right. To the left of the center nav ball, you have your air speedometer, basically good for telling you your aircraft's speed up to 550 knots, at which point you have to switch over to the machometer, which is directly below the aircraft. And actually, I'll show you the gauges that this aircraft has when you're in an outside camera in a moment. But first, let me finish covering the cockpit. So directly below the nav ball is the compass, typical of all aircraft. Over here, I've got an arrow pointing to it right now, is the altimeter, typical of jet aircraft. Over here toward the middle, you see buttload of these gauges, basically telling you your engine's power and other whatnot. But if I just kind of rev the engine for a moment, you see that the needles go up and down like that. Yep. Good for telling you your engine power and stuff. Also to note is this throttle stick. This animates, so full thrust, minimum thrust. Oh, and thrust reversers. Yes, this aircraft has thrust reversers. I almost forgot to mention that. I'll show you that in a moment. So let me put that thing back to idle. Actually, let me zoom in on these middle gauges here. If I turn the engine off, you'll see all of the needles just drop to zero, like so. And there we go. I've just turned my engine off. Which means now I can safely bring this engine to a full thrust state. So I can show you this lever here before I do anything else for the aircraft. This is the parking brake lever. So right now my parking brake is on, brakes off. Brakes on, brakes off. Now let me turn the brakes back on and set the engine back to idle because, yeah, I just want to stay put. I think I'm still sitting in the right position of the... Oh, before I leave the cockpit, I promised I'd show you the snoot. So right now it's in aerodynamic mode. I can bring that front windshield down and now I get a clearer view of the runway ahead. Setting 2 and you notice the snoot drooped, so I have an even better view of the runway ahead. Setting 3 and the snoot drops enough so that it's not obstructing the view out the windshield at all. Perfect for when you're coming in for a landing. So I'm actually going to set the snoot to setting 2. Now let me go back outside. So this aircraft has no additional camera views besides these standard 6 cameras here. All of which I cover in another video that I posted a couple months ago. Alright, so here are the gauges. Let me just do that to make sure that the needle on the tachometer at far right indicates that the engine is indeed off. So, yes, the tachometer is typical of all jet-powered aircraft. This vertical speed indicator is typical of all jet-powered aircraft. The altimeter as well. Nav ball is also typical of all jet-powered aircraft, though it seems glitched like that right now because, well, the aircraft is stationary and is not really moving anywhere right now, but you will notice it will correct itself. The speedometer, typical of all transonic jet-powered aircraft. It reads from 0 to 600 knots, and because this aircraft is a supersonic aircraft, it renders the speedometer, to be honest, a little hard to read once you achieve supersonic speeds because, well, technically it's rendered useless once you pass 600 knots, but if you know how to gauge the various speeds, that stuff. It actually used to read from 0 to 1200 knots, but that changed. That apparently changed with the 3.0 update that came out a couple weeks ago. Compass, typical of all aircraft, and that basically covers that stuff. Oh, also, you'll notice toward the aircraft's ass, there is a tail gear. There's a tail gear. Yes, good for when you're taking off or landing because, well, I notice when I go to rotate, I have a tendency to over-rotate, and it's probably a problem with, like, all Concordes. I'm probably not the only one who's having that problem, but basically, you run the risk of a tail strike. Well, that tail gear prevents a tail strike from happening during takeoffs and landings. Hell, you can even use that tail gear to ride a wheelie on this aircraft. I know I did that once before. I've got a reel in which I tried that out. Alright, I think it's just about time to prepare for takeoff from London Heathrow International Airport. That's where I am right now. And I'm going to yeet this aircraft across the North Atlantic and land at New York City, where I will show you how to land this aircraft. But first, what does this thing sound like, and how do you take off in this thing? I went ahead and unmuted the game, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the engine on, and then I'll throttle up slightly so that you can hear what it sounds like. Once I come to a stop, then I will proceed with showing you how to fly this thing. So here we go. There's also afterburners, baby! And that is what the Concorde sounds like. So let me bring it to a stop, preferably on the center line of the runway, and I can proceed to showing you how to take off in this thing. So right now I've got the nose set to setting 2. Actually, if I bring it back up to setting 0, just so I can show you for the moment. So if your aircraft's like this, for takeoff, you want to go to setting 2. That will lower the aerodynamic windshield and droop the snoot a little bit. Not just standard practice for when you're flying this aircraft. So, this babe has afterburners, if you have noticed. Well, actually, it also has thrust reversers, which is interesting, making it like the only supersonic aircraft, as far as I know anyway, that has thrust reversers on it. But I'll be covering those once I come in for a landing. But, yes, to take off, release the parking brake. Don't be a dummy. Make sure your parking brake's off. And just firewall the throttle. When you're taking off, activate the afterburners. Now, typically, I believe this is the only time that the afterburners actually come on. The other times, it's like full power sans afterburner or less. So, okay, let's get this thing back up. Okay, so ignore that glitch. Preferably, you want to get to 200 knots before you take off. So, right about now, I can go ahead and rotate. I can rotate. Okay, there we go. Once airborne, raise the gears. And I will go ahead and turn off the afterburner. So it says my engine's at 90%. It's basically full power without the afterburners engaged. And there we go. My aircraft is airborne. So how does this thing perform in the middle of a flight? So I think I can also go ahead and bring the snoot up. I'll just leave it at setting 1 for the moment being. So this aircraft, in real life, was capable of Mach 2 at 60,000 feet. You can definitely achieve those altitudes and speeds in this bird in GeoFlight Simulator. That is absolutely possible. Actually, a few years back, I made a YouTube video in which I flew the aircraft to over 100,000 feet at speeds of over 2,600 knots. That translates to about 3,000 miles per hour, faster than even the SR-71 Blackbird. Interestingly, that's another aircraft that you can fly in GeoFlight Simulator, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, I'll have a card in the top right corner showing you, that'll link you to that video. Kind of interesting how I'm able to achieve that crazy stunt. And we're going into the clouds? Yeah, we're going into the clouds. Interestingly, this aircraft is also capable of performing stunts, like its roll and pitch is responsive enough where if I so wanted, I could perform a barrel roll. You could see how easily the aircraft rolled as I was just messing around with my flight right there. Actually, I'm at a high enough altitude, I'm going to bring the aerodynamic windshield back in. And there we go. Now we just cruise our way westward, and eventually we will cross the pond and get over to New York. So I think that basically covers the mid-flight performances of this aircraft. So let me go ahead and get this thing back to New York, and I will show you how to land this aircraft. See you in a little bit. Alright, so I've made it to New York. JFK Airport is over there, and I am heading for this runway. I've got an arrow pointing to it over in the distance. That is the airport's longest runway, making it the most suitable to land the Concorde at. So what you want to do for landing, well, you don't even need to apply much engine power because this thing is so damn aerodynamic that it hardly loses speed during the gliding phase. So I'm going to go ahead and droop the snoot all the way. Okay, snoot is drooped. Of course, you also want to make sure that your aircraft is lined up as you come in for landing. I think I am actually going to apply just a little bit of throttle. I'm going to go ahead and lower the landing gear. I am on final approach now for, what is this runway exactly? No, not 4 right. 3-1 left. Runway 3-1 left, 1-3 right. This is the longest runway at JFK Airport, over 14,000 feet long, and you need that length of runway to make a successful landing in the Concorde. Though I think you could do it on shorter runways as well. I think I've done it at runways from, smaller cities, so it is possible. So I'm going to apply a little bit more throttle, so 30% throttle. Well, try to keep your ride as smooth as possible as you come in for a landing. Ideally, you want to try to keep about 200 knots. So I am actually going a little bit slow for this approach. But okay. Gonna come in for a landing. As soon as you, alright. So I'm low enough, I'm gonna go to idle. Once I touch down, and I'm really floating here, don't float. Alright, thrust reversers, full power. Alright, nose gear touchdown. Apply parking brakes. If you want extra drag, you could also pitch up all the way. That could act a bit as a spoiler. This aircraft has no spoilers, by the way. I think now I'm going to go ahead and level off the ailerons. And now I will turn off the thrust reversers. Let's bring the snoot up all the way. So there you go. Well, hopefully you got a good idea as to how well this is how you land an aircraft. So yes, as you can see, this aircraft is not exactly STOL, meaning slow takeoff and landing. Which means, yes, and you also need the maximum amount of brakes and stopping power that you have. Which begs the question, can you land on the deck of the aircraft carrier? And well, the answer is... Now quick, pull up, yeah! Not today, Patine! Oh, and by the way, trying to land with simulated carrier speed is not going to work either. Because the answer is still yeet. because this aircraft is just going so damn fast and takes such a long time to actually come to a stop. See, I can do this, but then I have to pull up and pray to my personal God that I can recover like I just did, which was actually a bit of a better recovery than just 30 seconds ago, was it not? So, no. You can't land on the deck of the aircraft carrier in GeoFlight Simulator, or in real life for that matter, let me make that clear. You can, however, take off from the deck of the carrier, but only if you've got 30-knot headwinds beating against your plane as you work to take off, and only if you utilize the entire length of the runway. Let me remind you, you only get 1,000 feet of deck to work with if you're trying to fool around with the aircraft carrier. So I am this far back. I should be able to utilize just about every inch of the aircraft carrier, minus, I guess, 1 foot of the back. But that doesn't really matter. Not really, because, yeah, with this 30-knot headwind, I should be able to get enough speed once I apply full power. And I should be able to pull back. It's going to be a hard pullback, and it's going to look sketchy and scary, but I can actually take off. So there, no, yes, yes, see? That's how you do it. Okay, let me calm down. Yes, sketchy and scary, but you can land the Concorde, or not land, damn it. You can take off from the aircraft carrier using the Concorde. So yes, you can do that, and that's how that works. And I think that's pretty much everything that I have to say about the Concorde. So that does it for this week's video of GeoFlight Simulator. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the Golden Gate Bridge. Yes, this is an item. This is one of the three-dimensional landmarks added to GeoFS. You can see it off in the distance. Yes, the carrier is just outside of San Francisco, California. I'm going to kill these winds. So, okay, that should give you a better view of the bridge. There's not so many waves distorting the height of the sea. But yeah, you can see that in the distance. I'll be talking a little bit about the bridge and what you can do to goof around with this bridge in GeoFS. So yes, I will. I'm actually going to break away from the bridge so that I don't spoil anything for next week's video. And that is going to conclude this week's video. So I'm Spaceman. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you all next week. Sierra Bravo 717 checking out.